Betty, thank you for talking to us today. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
It's probably a bit unusual because I'd just come home to country town Parks from boarding school, so I was just verging on 17, and they'd built a flying school at Parks to train air gunners and navigators for the war, and they'd just newly built that too. And my husband, who had joined up at 18, and he was still not even 21, and he came to Parks as one of the pilots to fly the planes for training. He was still more or less being trained himself, but he was flying the planes to train these air gunners. And so we used to have dances at the Parks Picture Palace about 3 nights a week, and so he saw me dancing there and came up and insisted on dancing with me, and from there it started.
Was your husband conscripted or was he a volunteer?
No, dear, he was a volunteer.
What was his routine and what missions did he fly?
Mainly during the war, he flew light aircraft because he did air-sea rescue, and he just needed light aircraft to fly in. He'd go in and pick up somebody to rescue them, or he would even drop supplies to boats who needed something. He did all sorts of diverse things, but mainly he flew light aircraft for that sort of thing, but he did fly bombers as well. Did
he fly by himself?
Most of the war. When you fly a bomber, you have a co-pilot, you have 2. But no, he flew by himself.
How did you manage to stay in touch with your husband?
Simply by letters, and he used to have to come down to Australia to pick up new aircraft quite a bit. So if he used to manoeuvre things so that he could quickly fly up through Parks Aerodrome when he was picking up the new aircraft so he could see me when he was back in Australia.
Did he have any post-traumatic stress?
He had all sorts of dreadful, he didn't have post-traumatic stress, but he really had so many health, because he was in New Guinea for so long, and he had beriberi, that dreadful tummy thing that they catch. He had that twice. He had a burst appendix. He had to be flown down to Australia drastically. He nearly died. But the main thing was he went up with this head of lovely golden hair. He was a real redhead, but it wasn't dark, it was a lovely golden colour. And in no time, with all the illnesses he had, it fell out, and he came back with his head covered in skin cancers. That's why he died early after the war. They went into his brain.
Where other places did your husband fly?
I can't really answer that very well because there were different places in the Pacific and in New Guinea, and I mean, he was based in Port Moresby, of course, quite a bit, but Rabaul as well, and Darwin. Just right towards the end of the war, he was based in Darwin. He was doing bombing, going up through to Japan from there. But he was based in just small villages virtually, wherever they needed help. He had one amusing tale about the war, that he'd had a forced landing, and the natives came and rescued him from his broken plane, and they took him to a Catholic mission. And he was there for 2 weeks until they could fly in to rescue him. And he said he had the best food and the best grog that he had the whole time he was in New Guinea. He said they had the life of Riley there.
What qualification level did he achieve?
Oh, well, he flew as an airline pilot after. He enlisted at 18. And then after the war, he just kept on as an airline pilot.
What happened to him between the end of his training and then him going to the war?
Oh, he came to Parkes. That's what happened. So when he ended his training, he came straight to Parkes to fly aircraft for training navigators and air gunners. As a matter of fact, our home became a home from home for a lot of the Air Force people from the Air Force base. They used to just quietly come and knock on the door and say we're homesick, and we'd welcome them in and give them a treat.
Had any of his physical features changed whilst he had gone?
Oh yes, he looked a different person. He went up, this lovely golden-haired, handsome man. He came back looking he'd had so many illnesses and all this lovely hair fallen out and head all covered in scabs, and different person.
Had his personality changed at all?
Oh no, he was an absolutely mad keen sportsman. He used to run in marathons. He ran in the original City to Surf Marathon, and he ran in that every year. And he even had a booklet that he kept his times.
Did he ever talk about all of his experiences at the war afterwards?
No, they wouldn't talk about it. No. Very difficult to get them to talk about it.
How do you feel now looking back on all those experiences that you had with your husband?
Oh, they were lost years. I mean, he was certainly, he used to write me a lot of letters, which were lovely, from New Guinea, and certainly in those he used to be longing for the war to be over, to get on with a normal life. He longed for that. But of course the other thing was, it would depend, he lost so many of his close friends there who were killed that some of the letters would be, he wouldn't want to depress me, but you could see he was down because he'd lost another friend.
What sort of music did he like?
Oh, classical, very classical. And he'd walk in the door and he'd say, "Come and play to me." And even when he was ill and dying, and he just, in a chair, I used to just always have classical music playing for him. And I think that's about the only time I ever saw him cry. He was sitting there not feeling very well, and I thought, I'll play him some music, and I played him one of his favourite things, and I could see the tears coming down his cheeks. He was so moved by the music because he was feeling so weak himself.